guys, today we're going to talk about thermostats.
Dad?
And thermometers? Hey guys, welcome back to CNC Reptiles. I'm Chris.
I'm Carly.
And we are a father and daughter's team that got into ball pythons a few months back and really just enjoy sharing our experiences here with you on YouTube.
And if you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing and hitting that bell.
That's right, so that you know when we have new content. And for you that are already subscribers, thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. So guys, today we're talking a little bit about thermostats and thermometers. And so what we thought we would do before we get into kind of the meat of this is we're going to start with Carly's fun fact for today.
So what we like to do and what's best for ball pythons is we like to keep their enclosures or bins a temperature of 80 degrees and a hot spot of 90.
That's right. And so typically in Africa, kind of that ambient temperature would be in the low 80s. And they, in those dens when they burrow in on top of the humidity, it's pretty warm in there, and generally accepted that 90 degrees on that hot spot really helps them in their digestion of their food. So that's why we like to keep that. So great fun fact, and that actually leads right into what we're talking about today with thermostats and thermometers. So let's start off, I guess, with these two guys before we actually get into the main ones back here that we use for the enclosures. Now, we've got a couple of different thermostats here. Carly, I'm going to let you hold this one. So that is a JumpStart thermostat, and this one is an InkBird thermostat. So the reason that we got these are obviously not what we're using on our racks. We originally got these when we got the second grouping of ball pythons and we had our quarantine area set up. We got this one to start with, and then eventually moved to this one, and then eventually to the Spyder electronics thermostat that we have in the back. So guys, this is not necessarily going to be a how to set up, but just really more what we prefer and how we're using them. So of these two guys, really the only reason we use these is to help with our ambient temperature, okay? This InkBird is actually a really nice model compared to the JumpStart. So let's just kind of compare and contrast these really quickly. So both of them come with, well, let's see, yours is on the bottom there, Carly, but a place that you're going to plug in whatever it is that you're wanting to control the temperature. Both of them come with a probe, so pull that up there, Carly. It's pretty long, right? Both of them have a metal probe, which is really good. I actually prefer the metal probes over some of them that have kind of plastic probes. I think these give a little bit better readings, okay? Here's the main difference between the two. This one here actually allows you to set kind of a standard deviation, if you will, for your temperature. So these are both on-off thermostats, meaning they're going to get to a certain point and they're just going to shut off whatever they're controlling. Then it will decrease temperature to a certain point and it'll kick back on, okay? The issue that I was having with the JumpStart is you can't set that standard deviation. So for instance, if we were wanting to control our hot spots of 90 degrees with these, the InkBird I can set at 90 degrees, I can set the high temperature at 91, I can set the low temperature at 89, and as it kicks to 91, it's going to shut off, and as it gets down to 89, it's going to kick back on. And it's just going to continue that cycle, keeping it relatively close to 90 degrees. The problem with the JumpStart is you can't do that. And honestly, guys, I don't even remember what the standard deviation is on this one. It was, I think, either 2 or 3 degrees. You can't set it. Or if you can, it only goes so low. I only used this for maybe 2 or 3 days and didn't really like it. Actually, this one is really much more, I guess both of them are for seed germination. When you're wanting to obviously plant some seeds, and there's heat mats that they use in that whole process. And that's primarily what these are for. I used this one for the rack, for the quarantine rack for about a week and a half while my other one shipped in. And it worked really well, What we use this for now, however, is for our small space heater that we have here in the reptile room. Now, before you say you should never plug space heater into something like this, the max input that this can take is 1200 volts, okay? So it's actually a lot better. I think this one's like 800, does it say there on the back, Carly? 1,000, okay, so this will take, I'm sorry, watts, not volts. Back up, scratch that. This takes 1,000 watts, this takes 1,200. The space heater that we have, we actually get to run on a very, very low setting. It doesn't take much to heat this room up. And so the max volts is probably kicking out to about 600. So half the actual capacity that this can take. And it's not running all day long. It's just, it kicks on, like I said, it's on off, right? We have this set for 80 degrees, since that's kind of where we want our ambient temperature to be. We've actually got it back there. I'll show you here in a second whenever we get, whenever we're showing you the other thermostat back here. But we've got it set for 80 degrees, so I have it 81 and 79. So it heats up to 80 degrees, kicks off, cools down to 79, kicks on, and continues that cycle, and it stays pretty constant in here. So that's what we're using this for. Really, really good. I know that there are a lot of keepers and breeders, as a matter of fact, that use these to run their entire racks. So the only reason that I don't use this one to run the entire rack, number one is because it's an on-off, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the Spyder. But secondly, if this one fails, I'm not exactly sure that it shuts the system completely off. I haven't read that in the instructions. I haven't seen the reviews online. And obviously, if it fails on a rack, you want it to fail and shut off and not heat up to 150 degrees or whatever the heat take can get up to, and ultimately injure your snakes, right? And so, so that's the InkBird and the JumpStart. Between the two guys, I would 100% take the InkBird every time. We don't even use the JumpStart anymore. Relatively the same cost, $25 to $30-ish, somewhere in there on Amazon. Sometimes I think you can even find the JumpStarts at Walmart, but again, I don't like them. Completely up to you. I do know some people use them. So, so let's take a look now, guys, at the Spyder Electronics thermostat. Okay, guys, so I got the camera flipped around here, and I thought what I'd do is I'd show you this little InkBird in action, actually. So, as I said, we've got the InkBird actually hooked up to our little space heater down here. You can see that it says the room is 78.7. It's actually really not. We just ran the air conditioner in here for a minute because it was getting kind of warm. But you can see the little red dot right there says it's working. So if I didn't have the space heater off right now, if I came down here and actually turned it on here, you can see it kicks that space heater on, right? I'm not gonna do that because it's a little bit too warm. So that would run, because it's below 79, which is what I've got the low set at, and you can see right here is the set temperature of 80. So it would run to 81, kick off, on and off. I've got the probe actually just set right back here in the middle of the two units here, and that's kind of what that's what we're looking at. So so that's how that works. Nice little thermostat. Works for controlling the humidity, or I'm sorry, controlling the temperature in here. Works out really well. So let's really take a look at what we came up here to look at, and that is these guys right here. So these are our HYRPStat thermometers. Now, guys, these are the high dollar thermometers, okay? Or sorry, thermostats, not thermometers. So these, if the others are 25 to 30, these are almost 200. So the HYRPStat 2 is actually, I believe, like 195, something like that. The HYRPStat 1 is a little bit different. So I think it's like 150, somewhere in there. The difference in the two is the HYRPStat 1 on top only controls with one probe. The HYRPStat 2, it has two separate probes. So the HYRPStat 1, we've actually got controlling over here, our 70 series, okay? So that's what that probe, we actually have it there on the middle rack. The HYRPStat 2 is the two separate probes are controlling the two separate racks that make up this one here. So we've actually got both of these on the bottom rack. So I've got one down there and I've got one right there. Here's the really cool thing I like about these. So first and foremost is the safety feature that I mentioned we didn't get with the InkBird or with the JumpStart. If these fail for whatever reason, they will fail in the off switch, meaning the heat tape will cease to work. So, so if they fail for whatever reason, we're not worried that the snakes might overheat because the heat tape gets up to 150, 160 degrees. The second thing that I like about these is you can see right there, it gives, number one, what it should be set at. So you can see the HYRPStat 1 is at 90.5. The HYRPStat 2, both probes are at 90. And there to the right, you can see the percentage of power going to those heat mats to get to that mark. This is what's called proportional, or technically dimming control here on the HYRPStats, okay? So what's cool about that, it means it never shuts on and or never shuts off and never has to kick back on. It's always running a percentage of power to it to keep it at a much more constant or steady temperature. So you can see right there, it's right at 90.5. There, it just bumped up to 90.1 there on that second probe with the thermostat 2. I really like that feature. So it's always going to be much more consistent than bumping up to 91, going down to 89, and kind of doing that. So I like these. Now thermostat goes all the way up to a thermostat 6. I don't know that I'd ever go more than a thermostat 4 because I like to see those percentages. And the thermostat 6, I don't believe that you can. Thermostat is actually coming out with one that's wireless that I think would be super cool. We'll definitely look into that as we grow. But ultimately, it actually sends different messages to your phone or whatever you have it hooked up to. So guys, these are the two that we have actually controlling the heat for the snakes. Really like these. I think it's well worth the money if you've got it. But like I said, in a pinch, that InkBird would definitely work as well. So let's take a look at some thermometers. All right, guys, so let's take a look now at some of the thermometers that we've used that really kind of help us control really more the ambient temperature and also some hygrometers that help us control the humidity. But before, we had to just get someone out to show you. So this is our little lady, Peanut. She is our butter, inchy, pastel, ghost. That's right, or hypo. They named her affectionately Peanut because she's peanut butter. And so, hey, sweet girl. So she is actually the reason we're doing this whole tub series. She is about to get upgraded from the smaller, what are those? So from the smaller tub that she's in, I think they're 11 quart tubs to a 23 quart tub. So, so she's the one kind of having us do all this because she's ready to be upgraded. So, all right. So first and foremost, let's look at this one. This is just your very standard Accurite. We use this for room temperature. Really nice thing about this is it gives you the temperature and the relative humidity in the room. It also gives you a high and low for both. So I'm not sure if you can really see that on there, but this clears out, I believe it's every 24 hours. Really just a good kind of overall one. We have two in here. I have it on each side of the room. They read relatively the same thing. But I had to have two whenever we had the quarantine rack, so that's why we got two. I think these are roughly $10, $8 to $10 at Walmart. Really good for, especially if you're just trying to see the overall temperature and humidity in the area that you're in. Now the first ones that we started off with to measure the temperature and humidity inside the tubs. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't even remember the name of this one. We got these first, right? I think we got these first. So really nice little unit. It comes with a little stand on the back. Can read in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. Gives you a minimum and a maximum, and you can read the internal temperature of the unit or the external temperature of the probes. Now this has two separate probes. This one here is obviously your temperature probe, and this one here is your hygrometer probe. The cool thing about this is you can technically take temperature and hygrometer readings at two separate parts of the tub, right? So we typically, when we have these in, we have the temperature at the front of the tub and we have the hygrometer at the back of the tub, or in the middle part of the tub. What we found with these is the smaller tubs, you have a lot harder time controlling humidity, especially in these smaller tubs. It really works out once we move to the 23 quart tubs, I guess it disperses a little bit better. But we use these primarily on the smaller tubs. The drawback is the probe is the con, right? So you've got two probes. That means two wires that have to fit in the little gap as you're sliding back and forth. These little sticky cups that it comes with don't like to stick all the time, and sometimes you're kind of chasing that piece trying to get them back stuck to the tub. So so that's the first one we started out with. When we went to the bigger tubs, oh, she's going up around your neck. When we went to the bigger tubs, we went to these Vivarium electronic ones. We actually got these at Triple L Reptile, I believe. So really kind of the same thing. It's a temperature and a hygrometer. It can read out in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. except it's got a single probe. Okay, so I do like that just from a sheer standpoint that's only one probe. It is thicker, however, so when we were using these on the bigger tubs, we actually had to just make a little groove in the tub for this cord to fit in, because it would just pinch it, and it made it very difficult to slide the tub in and out. The biggest drawback I've seen so far, one of these, I think it was the one we had on Bubbles' cage, I had dropped the probe in the water accidentally. Now the humidity doesn't read correctly, okay? So so we've kind of pulled these off. This one still reads correctly. You can see just our relative humidity here in the room is 67%, so pretty high. That's one of the problems that we actually have here in Southeast Texas, is really battling too high of humidity, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about actually setting up the tub. But not a bad overall. These, I believe both of these were around $10 to $12, something like that, depending on where you find them. And so, still, it's a good way to measure temperatures inside. I think what we'll probably do, though, now that we have the reptile room where we can easily, what's wrong?
Just give it up.
Oh, is she? She gets a little crazy when we get her out. She's definitely an adventurous one. So, I think since we can control the humidity, the temperature a lot better now that we're in the reptile room, we'll really just probably opt for hygrometers. We know what the temperature in the tubs roughly is. You can see the snakes thermoregulating in that tub. We'll use these probably for a little bit longer now that we've got the new 70 series over here, just to make sure everything's kind of lining up like we think it should. But overall, we'll probably just opt for hygrometers here in the future. So, all right, guys. Guys, so to wrap up the video, Cutie wanted to come out and just say hello. This is our piebald female. She's getting really big. Just love this girl. So we thought, just to wrap up, guys, we talked a little bit about probe placement, where you want, especially when you're controlling your racks, where you want that probe to go. So I'm going to put a picture up right here of when we were putting together the 70 series, why I like these racks. They actually have a little probe slot that you can actually slide the probe into. But when you're talking about probe placement, so you're going to have your heat tape, and you want your probe to be in contact with the heat tape. Now these racks in particular, you saw on that slide, actually put it where it slides under the heat tape, just like this, okay? But you know, there's some people that I've seen put the probe actually inside the tub or inside the terrarium, and that doesn't really measure the heat. You've got too much of a distance there to measure the heat that you need right here on the actual heat map. That's what we're actually trying to control, is the heat of the map. Of the mat, excuse me. And if you have that inside, you're not getting the best control and the best reading. You also want to opt for those that do have the steel tip probes. That's just going to give you the best reading on the heat mat there. So, so guys, that will do it for today. Hope that you enjoyed the video, guys. And Carly, you got anything else? No? All right. Well, from me and Carly, from Cutie and Peanut, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.